Welcome back to Start Here with UDL. We're going to do a quick chat about accountable talk stems today. And I'm going to lift up some other materials as we do this. So most of us are familiar with accountable talk. What a lot of us don't know is this comes from a group that specializes in accountable talk. And I'm going to put that link in the show notes. And it's on your screen right now. Highly recommend taking a look at their materials. They go a lot deeper than just being able to see, hey, here's an anchor chart of accountable talk. But this is a great chance to talk about why we want conversation stems, why we want discussion stems, and lift up a few things. If your goal is to lower the cognitive load for students cross-curricularly, accountable talk is a good idea because you can use expressing an opinion, asking for clarification, disagreeing and agreeing, reporting out from a group across multiple places. I can be in my CTE class for marketing. I can be in my science class. I can be in my English class or doing a math task. I can really be anywhere and I can use these. And then later on, I will be able to use these and transfer them to my life. So both near and far transfer on this. If you want something very specific to a content area, then what you may want to do is have a set of like math talk stems, and you might consider also having accountable talk stems, and then talk about when do you use specifically math talk stems and when do you use accountable talk stems. So those are things that are worth talking about in your cross-curricular groups. If your school runs as a PLC, you want to bring that to a grade level meeting or a department meeting so that you can decide if students are adding accountable talk stems and math talk stems and anything else to their learning strategy toolkit, then which ones do you want to spend the time on? And if your goal is simply to have students have some accountable talk, ways to talk with others, and build on their thinking and maintain a civil environment, you might just want accountable talk. So bring that to either your grade level team or to your department. And talk about both vertical articulation across the years and cross-curricular. And we'll get to a little bit on that why in a minute, but I also want to lift up demystifying discussion, which is not showing clearly on the screen. I will put it in the notes. This is Jennifer Orr's ASCD book. It came out 2 years ago in 2022, and she gets into, for K-5, for our littles, how to teach and assess academic conversation skills. I do want to lift this up because she gets deeply into how you would explicitly teach each of these and give feedback. She also makes recommendations that go nicely for learning targets. So you can have student-owned learning targets, learning intentions in the class that match accountable talk. It is a great idea when you have students who are in K-5 to have this be something you give them feedback on because they can get better at these skills over time. And then when they're working on their learner-owned strategies toolkits in the future, the anxiety that comes from not knowing what to say and when to stay and jumping into conversation, that's not there anymore because they've actually managed to master that. And so if we want students to be able to use discussion and discourse as part of their sense making, we have to make sure that they've built their toolkit when they're young. So I did want to lift up Jennifer Orr's Demystifying Discussion, How to Teach and Assess Academic Conversation Skills. Added bonus, that book includes how to do conversation mapping, which many of us know as spider web. And so conversation matching is a visual analysis technique, and you can use that and bring it to your grade level meetings to demonstrate how students are building capacity in their discourse strategies and their use of accountable talk and other talk stems, as well as determining areas of focus for the future. Great supports for executive function. So all of this fits beautifully into our DSRC standards. I am going to focus on the discussion part, obviously, because we're in accountable talk. We do spend a lot of time talking about things like pre-writing and organization of writing, and we don't spend as much time talking about discussion. So we can provide words, fanboys and awoobus words. We can provide sentence stems. A lot of our English language learner strategies are also helpful, but the accountable talk stems are perfect for DSRC, where we want discussion of claim evidence reasoning in the classroom. The other thing to lift up is from a UDL perspective, we're trying to build learner agency, and students can choose their accountable talk stems whenever they are focused on being part of a community of learners that are processing through things, that are building understanding. That's the sense making piece. And they're trying to figure things out together. This is a life skill. We spend a lot of time on it in the first 20 days of school to make sure that that safe community is in place where students can be okay with making mistakes and build on other people's learning and seek help from one another. This goes with what Hattie was talking about in the visible learning model when he said that students should be their own teachers and they should be able to seek help from others. That doesn't mean seek help from the adults in the room. That actually means activate knowledge with other people who are their age, their peers. This also goes nicely with sustained collaborative discussions, the working effectively and respectfully with others, actively contributing, asking and responding to probing questions. I know sometimes we wonder, how are the students supposed to ask each other questions in structured discussions? And that gets back to, well, we have to tell them how to do that. So if you look at soliciting response, what do you think? We haven't heard from you yet. Do you agree? What answer did you get? So sometimes we just get so fixated on how am I going to use popsicle sticks, or how will I as the teacher or us as the co-teachers, how are we going to control this conversation? And that gets into the ping pong. But what we really want is volleyball, where students are saying, well, what did you think? And then the other student answers back. And that is another reason why you might want the Jennifer Orr Demystifying Discussion book, because she talks about very specific ways to close that gap for students. And even though that is a book for K-5, I would find that useful in middle school as well. And this gets us to some of the tough stuff. So when we're thinking, seventh graders, how are they going to ask and respond to probing questions and participate in a structured discussion? Well, the answer is we're going to intentionally teach it. So that intentional planning is probably going to lead us to choosing some things for learner-owned strategy toolkits that include accountable talk.